Hey, it's me. Let's talk about buck bedrooms for a minute. Bedding areas. And why people fail when they hunt them. Comes down to a few factors. It's always great finding deer beds and deer sign and stuff like that. But when and how do you really hunt them effectively? Okay, that's the thing, is effectively. You can hunt anywhere you want to hunt anytime. Don't bother me, as long as you're not blowing my deer out. That's right, my deer, the one that I'm hunting. That's right, he's already mine. Okay, buck bedroom. You find an area where you believe a buck is bedding. Multiple beds, thick cover. Then what? How close do you hunt from it? How far do you hunt from it? I'm going to say to you that there is no rule. There really isn't. Because there are factors. And there's a lot of factors. Let's talk about the way I'm going to do it locally where I hunt. Broken up woods environment. Some woods, some golf courses, some fields, stuff like that. Backyards. Okay, it's kind of like a suburban type of a deal where none of the woods is much bigger than 100 acres or so. So it's not really a big woods environment, but we're going to talk about hunting in hill country and even out west. So here we go. Have a bedding area. First consideration, how am I going to get in? Okay, how am I going to close that distance? Let's say it's early in the year, and I want to hunt 200 yards from that buck bedding area. Because I believe that deer, before dark, is going to move up to a half mile. To a field, to a food plot, to somebody's backyard, whatever. That deer's going to come out at least, let's say, I'm counting on that deer coming to me at least a half hour before dark. Okay? Somewhere between a half hour before dark and dark. So, should be in enough light to safely shoot. So I'm going to set up downwind of where the deer's hopefully going to come from. So I need to know, how am I going to get in there, and how close can I get without spooking that deer? Okay, that's a big part of it. How much noise is that deer used to? How much intrusion from people is that deer used to? What will they tolerate before they get bumped? And if you bump them enough, it probably won't come back. Bump them once, it's probably not that bad. So how close can you get to that deer? Well, factor one is how much noise are you going to make? Getting set up. Is your stand going to be hung up ahead of time? Do you have to put up a stand? What type of stand are you putting up? Are you using a climber that can be semi-noisy and you really need to take time? And how much time do you need to take to be in there and go slow enough so you're not going to make too much noise? Next factor, number two, are you concealed when you're doing that? You see, it makes no sense to put up a stand or a blind or something where the deer can actually see you from their bedding area. So if you're climbing up a tree and a deer's looking up and there you are 75 yards away, you're probably cooked for the day, or maybe for a week or two. So again, that factors in. Now, what about hunting in a morning situation? You're going to get there long before that deer should be in its bed. So hopefully you're going to time your hunt closer to the rut when the deer tends to be away from its bedding area longer. That way you can be in the woods and in your stand an hour or 2 hours before that deer is even in the area. Hopefully that deer's a half mile away from you. But you still need to have a path in where the deer is not going to smell you. You need a path out where you're not going to bump the deer. And you also have to realize that you may be there for a long time. Because here's something people don't take into account. Okay? I'm going hunting before work. Deer's probably going to be in its bed before 10 o'clock. I'll just go in at noon. I'm up in my tree. Deer of a lifetime walks up. Bed's 43 and a half yards from me, just behind a bush. No shot. Now, do I go to work? Do I get down? Do I scare that deer? Do I bump him out of my life, possibly forever? Or do I sit in a tree all day? Now I'm up there, I'm old, my sugar's getting low, getting a little woozy. Didn't bring anything to eat. Buck's still sitting there. Do I get down and spook him? All these are factors that you need to take into account when you're going to hunt in a bedding area. You may get stuck in your tree for a while. And being stuck in a tree, it's a fact of life when it comes to bedding areas. So, how close do you hunt? Well, I typically hunt 200 yards. Now, if it's a highly pressured area, I'm going to push it. But I'm not going to push it much. 100 yards, 150 yards. If that deer's not coming out to me, I'm not going to blow him out of there. What about up in the mountains? Well, you have to deal with a whole bunch of other stuff now. You see, if you're hunting kill country, you're going to deal with thermals. Now, thermals go up, thermals come down. And it's not just at daylight thermals automatically flick the switch and go up. No, the thermals a lot of times will still be going down after it gets light while it's still cool out until the sun starts heating the place up and thermals start to rise. Which means you may have to come in over the backside of a hill or a mountain. Again, can you do that without walking through the deer's path? Still, you may also need to be concealed. Now, if you're hunting open hardwoods, you're probably not going to walk within 75 or 100 yards of that deer. So again, you might be a couple of 100 yards away. And it may be the fact that if you're hunting highly pressured public land, that's too far for the deer to get to you in the daytime. But if you're happening to hunt in an area that's pretty thick, where you can get reasonably close, then you got a good chance. So out west, what if I'm in Nebraska? There's an island of trees out there in a creek bottom. It's a half mile away. There's a pivot out here, a half mile from that bedding area. Where do you set up? Think about it. Deer are going to that pivot in the afternoon. If it's not super heavy hunting pressure, yeah, I'm set up a half mile away from those deer where they're bedding. Much less of a chance of being smelled, seen, or heard. So in that case, that makes sense. Now, if you have some cover, if you have a really good idea of the path that those deer are taking, you're looking at the geography and there's some little ditches and stuff like that, and you can get halfway to that bedding area, quarter mile isn't bad. We're talking 440 yards. So if that deer comes out a little bit late, he may still come into range. But again, don't pressure them before you need to. And that's the big takeaway. You want to hunt these deer without them knowing that they're really being hunted. I really hope this helps. Till next time, I'm Steve.